1. Cut.
Today we're talking about my latest short film, Balistic, so if you haven't seen it, click up here or in the notes below to watch the film before you watch this, because I'm about to spoil it like crazy. If you dug the film, check out the posters designed by Adam Rabley. We're selling a limited amount. They're going on sale tomorrow, 3 p.m. CST, and these are only going to be on sale for a week, and then we aren't selling them again. So if you want any of these, grab them before next Friday, and all of them are going to be shipping out late July, early August. We also have a special features pack for the film coming next week. It includes a high-quality version of the film, the shooting script, a director's commentary, VFX breakdowns, and over 4 hours of on-set experience. So if you dug the film, consider grabbing that when it goes up next week. But Balistic is definitely the largest scale that I personally worked on for my own film, with overall a crew of over 140 total across 2 states, starting in LA. For the location in California, I wanted something that felt like a graveyard of cars in the middle of nowhere, preferably a desert feel. And we really lucked out with this location. When I went out there, we mixed a location and tech scout together, so we decided in the moment and then went to work figuring out all the logistics, which was extremely useful for me to see in person from a script standpoint, because now that I have the physical location in my head, I was able to go back and do some rewrites to make sure everything would work and pace perfectly. But then came production day 1. We arrived before the sun was up and got right to work setting up for the day, which meant getting all the rigs and camera built out and ready to go. For the camera, with this one, I decided to go with the Canon C200. I approached Canon about being involved in this project right after I reviewed the C200 on the show and was really impressed with it. Originally, I was going to shoot on the Alexa Mini, but I really love the idea of going full film riot with the biggest project that we've ever done. The C200 is a sub $10,000 camera that can completely hold up against cameras 4 to 5 times its price, and I love that. And of course, budget was an issue. I knew I would need a lot of cameras for some of the stunts or special effects moments where we would only have one take on it. So I wanted as many cameras as the budget would allow, and the price tag of the C200 meant we could do that. So during production, I had something like 7 cameras there when needed, thanks to Canon and Lens Pro to go. We also had 2 sets of SLR Magic anamorphic lenses, also rented from Lens Pro to go, and a few spherical lenses as well, since I knew we would need some longer lenses at times and be able to get in close with shorter minimal focal distance than the anamorphic lenses will easily allow. But the first shot of the day was the opening shot of the film. To pull this off, we had a camera bike with our driver Webster. With that setup, my DP Chase and B camera operator Daniel could ride along to grab our shot. I knew I wanted this all in one, but I threw the B camera on there as a safety just in case anything went wrong, since once we went with the live special effects, we would only be able to blow out the windshield once. So we did a few dry passes as a safety and then went for it. And bang! The rest of the day was the car ramp and explosions, some running shots, and the baddies approaching on the SUV. Since we only had one day with the camera bike, we front-loaded our shoot with everything we'd need that required that piece of gear. Then came day 2 and 3, packed full of big stunts and special effects for the piece. Again, putting all of this in the first few days. That way on the last day, we could shrink it down to a splinter crew to get some of the performance moments and little pieces that we didn't get the first 3 days, which allowed us to save a lot of money on that 4th day. But day 2 and 3 had wire pulls, body burns, explosions, and a lot of falls, all to the very rocky and harsh ground. Stuntmen and women are truly incredible. The things that they do blow my mind. But the biggest and most complex action scene in the piece was the one that I kicked off with the massive slow-mo fireball. The action, of course, is getting shot completely out of order and across 3 days. And of course, at some point, the shot list had to be thrown out due to schedule. So it's a matter of keeping all the interactions coherent and, most importantly, intense. So for this, we're going all handheld. It does help us move fast, of course, but Chase and I wanted to switch. So before this, it's a lot more smooth camera operation, but when she takes action, we lose control. Things are frantic. So depending on what her mental state is, we're either on the Movi or stripped down to handheld. Another thing that allowed us to move fast was all available light. I've had a good amount of experience shooting action, so I know how long it takes. So shooting during the day gave us the ability to move without worrying about the added time restrictions that come with artificial light. So Chase just popped ND on all the cameras, which the C200 has internal ND, so that was easy, and then we just modified where needed with bounce, negative fill, or diffusion. So we moved fast, and we knocked out all our big stunts and setups in 3 days, with the last day held for smaller stuff like performance. So now with just Hannah and a very small crew, we shot out all the stuff behind the car when the baddies are supposed to be approaching, which let us take our time and fill out this moment of choice and discovery. With a scene like this, finding those beats that feel organic and build to inevitability takes some finessing. And in the script and my head, it was a bit different than it actually played out, which is always the case with a scene like this. So the first thing that I do is ask my actor what feels natural. In this case, it's the incredible Hannah Ward that I'm working with, which you might recognize from Ghostbusters. So instead of trying to force her to do exactly what I want her to do, we just try it, letting her feel it out. She has the general beats of what needs to happen from the script, and now she discovers what seems most logical to her in that physical space. It seems like a small thing, but it's actually pretty massive. More often than not, with a scene like this, if you try to impose every little motion on your actor, you're going to get something very robotic, which would have killed the scene. But after that, we moved into the final face-off between Hannah and our lead baddie, Omid, which is where Omid had all his dialogue, and it was often super windy out there too, but we had the Rode NTG3 inside of our blimp, wrapped in a dead cat, so everything sounded great. But in the scene, Hannah is tossed to the ground, rolls around on the sharp rocks, crawls, gets dragged, attacked, and and she never complained once. If you look at this shot here, that's not smoke, it's actual dirt coming off of her. She was just covered head to toe in dirt and bruises. She was committed and relentless, and I have all the respect in the world for her. The big lesson here is casting. There's a certain amount of luck to it, but if you're paying attention, you can read people. And if Hannah wasn't the type of person to go fully committed and go 100% for every single second that the camera was rolling, none of this would have worked. I'm sure you've heard it said before that when it comes to performance, the majority of the director's job is casting, and I could not agree with that more. But then Omid got scooped up and shot and face planted like a champ, and then right before the sun was gone, we grabbed our last shot, which we almost missed, and then we were wrapped in LA.
I just want to say thank you very much. It is a wrap, but before we do anything, I want to say thank you, stunts, of course, team. It is a wrap, but before we do anything, I want to say thank you, stunts, of course, team. That was a wrap on Balistic.
Great job, everybody.
Great job with that.
Really from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. This was the best experience of my life. You guys were unbelievable. So thank you so much.
Great job. Domain.com has all your website needs, including .com and .net domain names and intuitive website builders. You can take the first steps in creating an identity online. Domain.com is affordable, reliable, and has the tools you need to build that new website so you can start sharing your ideas with the world on a professional website. And no domain extensions are going to help you tell your story like a .com or .net domain name. If you want to brand yourself online, Domain.com has over 300 domain name extensions to help you fit your needs from .club to .space. And of course, they're giving you 15% off. They're already affordable prices when you get domain names, web hosting, and email. Just use the coupon code FilmRiot at Domain.com to check out. When you think domain names, think Domain.com.
There we go. And action.
Go inside. Lock the door. It's outside. Okay.
After we wrapped in LA, we still had the other half of the film to shoot, this time in Texas, with a whole new cast and crew and a very different genre from what we were shooting in LA, which was all just a very fun experiment meshing these two things together. The scariest thing for me while prepping the Texas shoot was the fact that I was a moron and wrote a difficult and emotional role for a 10-year-old. But thankfully, the film god smiled on me and we found the very talented Camry Musser. Not to mention Rachel Hendricks, Mark Ashworth, and Graham Powell, who you'll also recognize from those houses. But this shoot started off in the basement set. Another thing that I wrote that I had no idea how we were going to pull off because there was nothing like that in our area. I needed a very specific type of basement that we were just not finding until my production designer in Texas, David, showed us the wine cellar his friend was building. With a few add-ons, we were able to fully sell this as the right type of basement. So David built an entryway and a door for the bunker, and we threw up some practical lights, a green screen outside the window. Since we were shooting this during the day, my team tented the entrance so that we had no daylight still, and then we had a basement.
You get the kill. All day, all night. It's like an angel. Save yourself!
That bitch. Run rat. It all turns out the same.
We also had these great onyx lights from ICANN that Chase was able to use a ton. In this scene, he used it as the stairway light, and when we came down for the dialogue, a very dim light just to get some highlights going in our vibe, which is how we kept using it over and over throughout this section of the shoot. The other piece of gear that we had was a Fisher dolly. I've used dollies before, but never for something that I was directing. There's such a deliberate, cinematic feel. It lends itself to much more confident shots, which boosts everything. I do love sliders, but the weight and precision you get from a proper dolly can't be beat. But after we wrapped up in the basement, Chase took the rest of our night to pre-light the next day so that we could move fast on day 2, which started with the descent down the stairs, which was another dolly shot. We started low, then boomed up and tilted to catch our actors on the stairs, then followed them back down. I did this to establish some danger and geography. Since the shot doesn't cut, this one move informs you where everything is in relation to each other and how close the danger is. After this, we moved into our heaviest scene, the living room. We rehearsed a bit, and then I just had the actors go. We had little time to get this, so we focused on performance, not coverage. I kept the coverage as minimal as I possibly could, keeping the B camera always in play, picking off things that we may or may not use. I also made sure to get Camry's coverage as soon as possible. Since she's a minor, there's a hard out for her that we can't go past. So once she was wrapped for the night, I had a little extra time with Rachel and Mark to grab some singles, like this here with Mark in this angle. And in this angle, I had Mark played a few ways, angry and aggressive, then another pass that was more calm. That way, I could choose in the edit where I wanted to ramp him up, and cut between calm and empathetic while looking at Camry, and then in more violent self-preservation mode when looking at Rachel.
Shoot him, Dave!
No! Wait!
Please!
Please, don't. I just want to share your phone.
Shoot him or he will kill us both!
So we got this scene done, wrapped Mark, who was an amazing human, and we moved on to day 3. On day 3, we started in the bedroom with a very simple setup, mostly consisting of the Aperture 120T and the ICANN Onyx. This was a tricky moment. It was a tight room, little movement, but a lot to convey. Once we had what we needed, I had them do lifting. Just a habit, since I knew that I would be doing some quick emotional flashes. And again, I'm that I did because we used it everywhere. After that, we went outside to set up for the final scene of this storyline. Chase took the remaining daylight to get everything set. Then once the sun was gone, he was able to shade the light so we could just move. And this was very low budget, especially for how ambitious the project was. So Chase didn't have all the lights that we really needed to make this easy. So it was a matter of lighting smart, using things like the Aperture 300D in the background to light up trees and give it some depth. But once we got going, we only had a few hours with Camry, and we had to move fast. So I wrapped my coverage, starting from behind them and working my way around. That way there was minimal lighting changes from setup to setup as we eased around. But even so, in the end, we only had 20 minutes to grab that final moment between Camry and Rachel. But luckily, they are real pros and knocked it out. But thanks to that time constraint, we just had to shoot it. We didn't have time to really finesse the shot, so we ended up with this flat, black background. But I knew in post that I could grab some cloud images from Adobe Stock and toss those in, make it very subtle to where you can almost feel them more than see them. But with them in there, it doesn't feel like an empty wall anymore. Then we finished our entire project with a shot from inside the bunker as the door shuts on Rachel. To get this one, we propped that door up on some cinder blocks, which that door was created by David for this moment. Then we lined up some apple boxes for Rachel to walk on, grabbed the shot, and we were wrapped.
Let's wrap on Rachel.
Both shoots were a lot in a very short amount of time, but thanks to the incredible cast and crew that I lucked out with, we got it all done. One thing that I had to do, which I've never had to do before, is utilize a second unit director, which was Josh. He went off and grabbed all the quick flash shots that you see in the film and the baddie side of this running bit. It was a must to do to get all of this done, but luckily I had someone I trusted handling it. And that's it. There's a ton more to get into. Next week, we're going to be diving into the specifics of the stunts and special effects, so keep checking back for more. And again, don't forget to check out our on-set experience pack for Balistic. It's coming out next week, and it's insane. There's so much content in it for you. And check out our webpage for the film, link in the notes. We have all of our editing vlogs that we put out there and some BTS pictures, and we'll be updating with all the BTS videos as they come out. And as I say with every project, no one makes a film alone. Balistic was only possible thanks to the large group of amazing artists who helped make it happen. So please check out the IMDb page for the film, link below, and take a look at all the wonderful people who also slept less and shared in my passion for making this film. So if you are watching and you worked on the film, thank you. But that's it, and I'll see you next week when we blow stuff up.